Good evening, Father.
Father, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Father.
Good evening, Father.
Good evening to you all. And I'm very happy to have you so many. It's already 3:53. I think it will go about 500 people have registered for this webinar. And though I planned for 1 hour, it might go a little longer, maybe 15 minutes more. We are already starting 5 minutes late. I think because these issues are there. But I'm very happy to have you all. I know there are many of you are school teachers from all of our province schools. So it's a great pleasure to have you all. And we also have vice principals and vice principals, Jesuits, our friends, collaborators. Welcome to you all. And we also have some special personalities. I believe it is along with us. I believe they are registered. Father John Ravi SJ is the secretary of the Jesuit Education Association of South Asia. Previously, Father Sunny Jacob was there, and presently Father John Ravi. So I saw he had registered for it. So welcome, Father John Ravi. You are there. And also Father Tony P is our province coordinator for education and also director of ERC, Educational Resource Center. So we are I'm very happy to have you. And a big thanks to all the principals who are actively supported this webinar by forwarding all the links to you all. So I thank a big thanks to them too. And special thanks to Father Joshi, Father Tony John, for especially Father Joshi has been helping out with the digital platform, and then Father Tony John will be assisting with the technical support. And Brother Juvin Nath is not here, who helped in creating poster and a registration link. So let me begin with this one slide, what you call PowerPoint. So Ignatius knew, as I already informed you through the registration link, actually is a title of a book written by Father Ralph E. Metz SJ. Right, he was my professor when I was doing Masters in Education at San Francisco. So what he does was he compares the Ignatian method of prayer, teaching and learning with the modern educational research. I would like to let you know that this webinar would be a form of introduction. I won't be able to go deeper level because I'm just introducing this topic to you, and it certainly requires another webinar to go deeper level with certain practice and further discussion. So let us begin with a prayer, short prayer, a moment of silence, invoking God's blessings upon all of us who are participating, on our families, our students, for whom we work. As Mother Teresa says, prayer is putting oneself in the hands of God. So let us surrender ourselves, our students, our families, and all this endeavor of Jesuit education in the hands of God. I would also like to remember Father Stan Som ESJ. You might have already heard about him. He belonged to our province, who died in police custody on July 5th in Mumbai. He's certainly a person who worked here, a person who stood for rights of Adivasis, the vulnerable, Dalits, worked in Chaibasa and Ranchi. He became a voice for the human rights issues. So he's no more, but his voice still remains with us and inspires. And we also, as educators, are promoting justice in education. This is about Miss Sujata Bose, a teacher of the Noblis School, Buli, who died yesterday, passed away yesterday due to leukemia, blood cancer. May God grant her eternal rest, peace and consolation to her family and friends, colleagues and students. Thank you. So what are the objectives and outcomes of this webinar? So as it is given in the slide here, the teachers will learn about the foundational aspects of Jesuit education. So I'll connect some of the important aspects in the especially which are brought out with the important documents of the Society of Jesus with regard to Jesuit education and about our life. Secondly, teachers will realize that they are collaborators of a larger Jesuit educational mission. I will speak a little bit about Educate Magis online Jesuit community for Jesuit and Ignatian educators. Teachers will learn about the Ignatian method of prayer, teaching and learning, and modern educational research that is presented in the book by Father Ralph Metz. So what are the outcomes? Teachers will participate in the exercises and share their experiences. There will be one exercise in the middle of this presentation, and you will reflect over your certain experience of your life as a teacher and share that experience in the chat box. Since we'll not be able to have a group discussion, so I invite you to share that experience. I will lead you into that, so you please don't worry about that. And then teachers will practice the examination of consciousness at the end of this presentation. So I will lead you into this exam exercise. Teachers will all become the members of Educate Magis online community. As I mentioned, I will speak a little bit more later. Teachers will implement Ignatian method of teaching and learning in their classes. Try to understand this method based on the spiritual exercises. Since you are not done it, it may be difficult in the beginning, but as you go through it again and again, you will understand why that is quite significant for our teaching and learning and how it is connected with the modern education research. So some of you might already be aware of the Ignatian year 2021. So the Society of Jesus and so-called the Ignatian family, we celebrate the Ignatian year, which started on 20th of May 2021 and will end on 31st July 2022. So what is it all about? This is a time of preparation for Loyola Feast. Some of you may be preparing for that, and especially during the regular year, students would put up a play, and certainly I'm sure they would put up a play about Ignatius, where during the Battle of Pamplona, during a battle, he loses or shatters his right leg because of a cannonball. So that is the experience of Ignatius, so-called Inigo Lopez de Loyola, who was a knight and a soldier who became Ignatius of Loyola. So we celebrate his conversion experience we call Cannonball Moment or Cannonball experience of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. This is the beginning of conversion for Ignatius, Inigo Lopez de Loyola, who became Ignatius of Loyola. So this year we celebrate in various forms, and this webinar is one way, is preparation for that. I mean, supporting learning more about Ignatius and Ignatian ideas in our teaching and learning. So we also pray through the intercession of Saint Ignatius that this conversion in the sense of not religion or different forms, but is about inner conversion of each one of us, all of us, from our mind, heart, and soul, so that we become better educators, better Ignatian Jesuit educators who serve others, our students, to become better human beings, better citizens of our country and our world. So what are the significant documents? I'll just briefly explain because we don't have much time to go deeply on any one of these documents, but at the same time, we all need to know about these documents. The first document, I will come to them little details later. The spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius, which was published by Ignatius in 1548. Imagine 1548, and the Father Ralph Metz speaks about that, particularly on the spiritual exercises and how the methodology presented in the book is connected with the modern education research. Secondly, Ratio Studiorum or Plan of Studies, published in 1599. The Characteristics of Jesuit Education, 1986. Ignatian Pedagogy, IPP, 1993. I believe most of you are aware of that. Universal Apostolic References, 2019. Jesuit Education, a Living Tradition, 2020. So coming to the first one, the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, 1548. What is it? So this is a book, we call it the source book for all the Jesuits and all that we do. So it is not a storybook or just simply a writing. It is a manual for Ignatian retreat directors. So I don't know if any one of you are done other than the Jesuits or some religious, we do Ignatian retreat. What we do is that, especially for the Jesuits, twice in our lifetime, when we join the novitiate, we have 30 days of retreat. You may be surprised, 30 days, my God, how can I survive in this? And then we do second time during tertianship, that is another 30 days. I'll be going to do that in my tertianship soon. So what is in 30 days, Ignatius presents various instruction, guidelines, methodology, how to do an Ignatian retreat. And it is divided into 4 weeks with flexibility to adjust according to the needs of retreatants. So there are people who cannot do this retreat. So what they do, Ignatius gives option called 19th annotation retreat. That means it can be done throughout the year. Every day you spend like 1.5 hours. It is not done in our context because of our contexts are so different. When Ignatius wrote this spiritual exercises, after his conversion experience, he jotted down everything, whatever that he experienced, especially his God experiences, an experience of guiding people in helping them find God and becoming good human person. And only in 1548 he published it. So it consists of a lot of experiences of his own and of the others. So, and it is written in a very Christian Catholic context of Europe. So it's not in that's why it is the prayer methods or scripture that is used brought out from Bible. So specifically it is used from that. So what is the purpose of doing that? We call it principle and foundation, spiritual exercise number 23, that is to praise, reverence, and serve God. That means we are all created by God to praise, reverence, and serve God. This comes from very Christian Catholic perspective. And to save one soul, the aspect of saving one soul is they're present in all of our religious tradition, salvation or moksha. So we speak about that. And Ignatius also speaks about Ignatian indifference or inner difference, inner freedom. That means we, as a result of doing this Ignatian retreat, we grow in inner freedom to decide what is that God wants us to do or what is that I need to do. It helps in our decision making. We call it discernment. So what is the right thing to do given the situation? So all this thing can be learned from the spiritual exercise. So the next book is Ratio Studiorum. Ratio Studiorum, which was brought out in 1599. It consists of 30 rules with 467 articles. So Ratio Studiorum, or it is known as Plan of Studies. So it consists of everything about Jesuit schools, colleges of that time. Can you imagine? I will speak little briefly about the Jesuit schools later. Our first school, Jesuit school, so-called college, started in 1548. And that I'll speak a little bit about that little later. And then onward, there were so many other colleges, schools, so-called. Their schools are not same as our schools. They are mostly like secondary or senior secondary or undergrad colleges or universities. So they were, and the Jesuits over the year, they experimented various methodologies of managing the school. So this book, which published in 1599, consists of everything about Jesuits, that education system of that time, right? So it is about governance of the schools, selection of the professors, admission of the students, program of studies, authors and texts, the methodologies, scholastic training, religious formation, discipline, rewards, punishment, time schedule, everything, vacations. I had to read this book, study this book as part of my doctoral research, and it consists of everything. And the Jesuits focused on a humanistic program emphasizing forming upright character in this study. So we call it like a form of Jesuit pedagogy. Next, the next document came up much later in 1986. So what happened? So all throughout the world, we had a lot of institutions, colleges, seminaries, and this Rashtra Studium was used in all these institutions. But over the years, many things changed. I have no time to explain all those things, but there are a lot of things changed, and a lot of countries, the rules were changed regarding schools, and every country had its own ways of teaching and learning. So Jesuits had to change the system of education, the way schools are run. So at the end, people began to ask, what should be, what kind of things that our Jesuit schools should practice or implement? And that's why we have the characteristics of Jesuit education, which are brought out by a commission called ICAJE in 1986 under the leadership of Father Superior General of that time. His name is Father Pedro Arupe. And here, actually, they propose 28 characteristics. I just mentioned few of them here. Find God in all things, are aware of that. Focuses on pura personalis, that is, individual care of person, forms moral values, is Christ-centered, serves the faith that does justice, is part of church's mission, strives for excellence in learning and formation, is working as a community, is adaptable and open to growth. So all this, there are 28, means our Jesuit school should have these characteristics. I mean, it depends on place to place where you are managing the schools. So next, as Jesuit educators and so-called Ignatian, all our collaborators, those who are involved like you, they began to ask, how are we going to implement these characteristics in our teaching and learning? So then they brought out, after all this discussion and deliberation, came up with Ignatian pedagogical paradigm, so-called IPP. And here you see that the 5 dimensions of IPP, I believe all of you are aware of it and try to practice it in your teaching and learning: context, experience, reflection, action, and evaluation. So the context of students, right? And experience that we help them teach through our teaching through various methods, maybe direct teaching or project method or activity-based learning. And then we help them through reflection. What is the purpose of doing that teaching or learning? And sometimes we do miss a lot this aspect, even though we are aware of IPP, because we have to finish our syllabus, we have to finish them because the exams are coming, and our focus is students also are more focused on marks. So all those things are concerned. Our education system goes towards marks oriented. So we forget to do reflection and then appropriate action. We do evaluation, but it should be based on what we have done. So reflection is so central for Ignatius, or it's the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius. Then there are other 2 documents. One is called, this came up just recently in 2019, Universal Apostolic Preferences. So Jesuits and our collaborators from 2017, 2018 onwards, we began to reflect and discern what does it mean for us in this century, means the next 10 years, what is that God wants us to do? What is the purpose of our ministries, apostolates? And then we came up with these 4 preferences, that means we would like to focus all our attention resources towards these preferences. So it doesn't mean that we are not doing, we were doing from the past, but now we would like to focus especially on these 4 areas. That is, to show the way to God, to the spiritual exercises and discernment. All right, that is mostly done through Ignatian retreat. Then the walk with the poor, the outcast of the world, those whose dignity has been violated, in a mission of reconciliation and justice. All right. So Father Stan Swami is a role model for us in this preference, and there are many more who are working for peace and justice, working for those who are vulnerable population, our brothers and sisters. They are working for, and there are, along with Jesuit, a lot of our other collaborators are also working. Then third one, to accompany the young in the creation of a hope-filled future. So that's why we are here for, as educators, Ignatian educators or Jesuit educators. We are here for our students, our children, to help them to create a hope-filled future. So they are not for us, we are for them. And then the 4th one, to collaborate in the care of our common home. So how do we work with each other to protect our earth. We know there is a lot due to climate change, lot of destructions taking place. So how are we working together to protect it for not only for ourselves, for the future generation to come? The last and the most recent one is called the Jesuit, the document is called Jesuit Schools, a living tradition in the 21st century, an ongoing exercise of discernment, which is brought out in 2019. And it speaks about what are the key identifiers our Jesuit schools should have. And it says they should have 10 key characteristics or identifiers that our schools should have. That is Catholic, committed to in-depth faith formation, in dialogue with other religions and worldviews, committed to creating a safe and healthy school environment for all, committed to global citizenship, committed to the care of all creation, committed to justice, committed to be accessible for all, committed to interculturality, committed to being a global network at the service of the mission, committed to human excellence, that is magis, committed to lifelong learning. We are all educators, not only to help our students, but we all keep on learning. And that's what I see myself as an ongoing learner. And we all, once we stop learning, we cease to be educators. We'll not be able to teach others. We don't learn. So this coming to now a brief history of a Jesuit school, very brief history. So our first Jesuit school, as I mentioned before, the college, so-called, is not a school, a college, started in 1548. That's called the Collegio di San Nicolo. It started in Messina in Italy. So this is just a painting or painting or a drawing of that school. At the same time, we need to know that there was another college called St. Paul's College, Goa, which was there before in the name of Santa Fe or Holy Faith School. When Francis Xavier, I believe you know about him too. St. Francis Xavier is one of the first companions of St. Ignatius of Loyola. They became friends in Paris, and then later on they formed the Society of Jesus. And Ignatius sent Francis Xavier to India. And when he reached there was this school in 1543. The Bishop of Goa asked him to run and manage the school, take over the school. And Jesuits began to teach in that school from 1543 onwards. However, in 1548, Francis Xavier changed the name of the school to St. Paul's College, and that became part of Society of Jesus. However, in the society, we call the first college or the school is Collegio di San Nicolo. None of these schools exist now. Many things have happened over the year. However, just look at this map. I believe some of the schools may be having this. This consists of all the universities and schools. Some of our schools have only for schools alone, but this map, which came out in 2020, and you will find in Educate Magis website, which gives you the details about how many schools, colleges, universities we have. Just look at here. We have about 195 colleges, universities, with the help of 150,000 faculties educating 1 million students, just 30 million alumni over the years. And the schools, we have formal schools, 839 schools with the help of 55,000 plus teachers, educating 862,000 students. These are formal schools. We have many other types of schools. One is called JRS, Jesuit Refugee Service Schools, which are mainly, JRS was started by Father Pedro Arupe to support the refugees who are fleeing their countries because of war and destruction. They were fleeing different places. And then for them, Father Pedro Arupe started this Jesuit Refugee Service. And currently there are 75 schools. I mean, there's Jesuits plus collaborators working in 24 countries through the 75 schools, educating 195,000 students. And along with that, we have called another network called Fe Alegria, that means Faith and Joy Schools in Latin American countries. Mostly, they are in 22 countries, educating 13,38,000 students. Now, wait a minute, ask yourself, see this one. Imagine how amount of education is provided for us students all over the world, and we are part of that great mission of Jesuit education. And just as I said, from this last 400 to 500 years, roughly about 400, 500 years, our Jesuit education system of schools have been established around the world in many different forms. And we are part of this great tradition. And it's a one way, we feel great. I feel personally, I believe you all must feel great pride in that. Be happy about it, but at the same time we have the responsibility to learn well our tradition and hand it on to our future generations to come. So we will together help as a community, Ignatian family, we help to transform this world, to create a community where of people who care for one another, of community which promotes reconciliation and justice. So we are all part of this great mission. So it is the right time for us to ask ourselves, in what way I am contributing to this great mission? You are doing that, but not as a, now as an individual, but as a larger community, not as one school. Now, like today, this webinar, we are as a province school level, particularly English schools, we have come together. We will do the same thing for the Hindi non-English schools too. So similarly, it is similar webinars are done at different province level, world level, right? So it's being done. Like we had recently that colloquium on Jesuit education, and that information is there in the this one Educate Magis website. And if you become member, you can learn about that, know about what is happening around the world. It's very simple. Our schools, your school has been registered in this website. So just you have to register with your name, email address, and with your school. And then there are a lot of resources you will find about Jesuit education. Not only that, you can connect with educators from around the world. There are a lot of people around the world who are working, trying different ways, and there are different ways of teaching and learning, particularly this pandemic time. They are trying different things. So you can share your experience with them, and they can share their experience. See how we can collaborate. Thanks to this technology, you have become now techno savvy or expert. Some of you may be in spite of all this struggle of 1.5 years, but thanks for the spirit of magis, the spirit of excellence that helps us keep moving forward. And this spirit will help you still further to take this Jesuit education forward to our students, their families, and the years to come. So now let's come to a small exercise. It's a short exercise. Actually, Father Metz proposes another exercise which I given at the end because it needs more time, so we'll not be able to do that. So instead of that, I invite you to do an exercise. Let me play music. What do you have to please recall and relive a memorable teaching experience? I believe you all have many different experiences. So just try to recall one of that experience and try to relive that. Don't think about it, but try to get into that experience as if that is happening here and now. So possible, try to close your eyes. Try to, I know there may be some distraction, but as far as possible, you concentrate, close your eyes and recall and relive that experience. So we will do it for 2 to 3 minutes. So slowly try to reflect over the experience just now you had. What is it like reliving that experience again? Did you think, imagine, or were you totally part of that experience? What happened to you as you entered into this exercise? How do you feel now? So please share your experience of this exercise of meditation in the chat box, maybe in a few sentences, 2 to 3 sentences. Please feel free to share your experiences. So we also read from each other what you are written. Now I'll get back to you why I did this, gave you this exercise when I discussed with you about the Ignition method of teaching and learning. Thank you so much for sharing. I know, please continue to keep writing as we proceed to the next slide. I'll give maybe a few more minutes, not minutes, few more seconds till I begin the next part of this webinar. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. So now let's come to this part of this webinar where I'll focus on what Father Metz explains about the Ignition method of methodology in the spiritual exercises with the modern education research. But in this slide, you will see there are two things. There is Ignatian methodology in the spiritual exercises on the left column, and the right column, the relationship with an Ignatian class. So I invite you just focus on the left column. Just focus on the left column. It's very important to understand this this part very well. I know you are not practiced this, so it may be difficult, but please don't worry about it. Just try to understand as much you can. All right, when you come back again, you will understand it better. So this is just let give a little introduction before I continue with this. See, in this 30-day retreat or the Ignatian retreat, we do also in the 8-day Ignatian retreat. What happens is Ignatius invites the retreatant to pray for about 4 to 5 hours of formal prayers during the day and night too, possible. So each prayer hour consists of 1 hour, right? And he invites the retreatants through the retreat directors to prepare for that prayer. So it should be prepared the night before. If I am going to have prayer next day morning, I need to prepare it beforehand. And it happens, all things happen very Christian Catholic context, with prayers will be taken from, especially the scripture from Bible. Some passages they are from taken, and Ignatius asks us to prepare that one. So that is the thing here. And what happens before the prayer, during the prayer, and after the prayer. So here, if you look at it, preparation for prayer points the night before. That is, we prepare for the morning prayer. And especially Ignatius asks the retreatant or those who do retreat to take up 3 points from particular scripture passage or particular experience I want to pray about. So I take 3 points, and here it is not added, but he asks the retreatant or the person who does prayer to recall those 3 points before going to bed. All right. Then again, when you wake up, again you recall those 3 points. So it helps like repetition. All right. And our brain is totally focused into that. Then preludes. So what are the preludes? Preparatory prayer, that is before actual prayer, preparatory prayer, composition of place, how you prepare yourself for the prayer, preparing the place and the space, and the grace sought. What is that grace do I ask from this prayer hour from God? And the main part of prayer. The main part of prayer, especially in this form, there consists of 3 forms of prayer. There is meditation, contemplation, application of senses. I believe some of you already in your own religious tradition, you pray various forms of meditation. So here meditation, you take, as if I take a scripture passage, I take three points. I reflect over first point, pray about it, and think about it. So that means it involves memory, understanding, and will. Memory, because we recall. Understanding means you start reflecting about it, and will, because that is something I want to do. That is my wish to work, pray about this. So it is my intention. This is my desire that I want to do these prayers. There are another form prayer, made it contemplation. In contemplation, I try to directly become either part or observer of that event, as if that is happening on the TV or some place. Either I become participant or I observe, but being there. That means I imagine to be there, all right? And it also involves imagination, understanding, and will. So I asked you to enter into this exercise. So I don't know how many of you share a lot of wonderful experience about reliving that experience. So what did you do? Did you think about it? Did you contemplate about it? Or the next one called application of senses. Application of senses means I become totally part of that experience as if it is happening here and now, that I feel it, I see it, I listen to it, I can smell the environment maybe around, I can touch it. So all my senses are involved as if happening here and now, just reliving as if. So which one were you able to do that? So this is just for your own experience, that exercise, how it is connected, which one of these, either meditation, contemplation, or application of senses, right? Then we'll come to the left side later. So next one, So colloquy. So after finishing that prayer of maybe a 45, 50 minutes or 55 minutes, Ignatius asked the person who does retreat to do a conversation, talk about that experience with Jesus, with Mary, or maybe even the participants of that event who are in that prayer exercise, in the sense, in the meditation, contemplation. If I take an parable, there may be some people there. Or if I take about Jesus and disciples, there will be some disciples along with Jesus. So I talk to them. So it's doing a conversation in prayer, do it prayerfully. Then review at the end of prayer. That means after finishing all the prayer, I do a review of what happened. Well, that's why he asked what worked in the prayer, what was neutral, what did not work, what do I want to do during the next time of prayer? Based on my experience, I want to plan out for my next prayer, right? So this is very important, preparation for prayer, all these points, main part of the prayer, and then colloquy, and the review at the end of the prayer. There's a closing prayer also, but he has not mentioned, but the review at the end of prayer, you need to know that, be aware, just keep it in mind and try to understand. So how it is connected with relationship with an Ignatian class. So preparation of prayer equal to preparation for class. So that is, according to IPP, is a context of students, context, our own context, and the context to the school or class, or maybe now this one, technology, that is a context that you are in your home and students are in their houses trying to connect, learn from each other through the mobiles or laptops. So that is a context. So prelection of homework, I mean, that's if I'm a student or doing that, I as a teacher, you should help me to pre-reading of the homework, prepare myself for the homework. Establishing a proper learning state during the prayer class time. Is there a proper learning space, atmosphere? And what are the objectives of that class, right? What is the objective? As in the beginning of my webinar, I gave the objectives and outcomes. What are the objectives of the class? Then active learning and reflection, all right, that is equal to main part of prayer. So which involves experience, reflection, and action. That is the next part, the core of IPP, experience, reflection, action. So use of both traditional academic skills plus the use of the creative and imaginative parts of the mind. Okay, that we use in our teaching and learning in actual class. Stress on imaginative dimensions of learning over the more logical, rational processes. Repetition for deeper understanding and integration, not simply review. So it tries to compare with meditation with this one, contemplation with this second one, and application with the repetition for deeper understanding and integration, not just review, repeating same thing, but you go deeper and deeper that experience. The more we reflect over our experience as you did now, and if you do it again, our experience becomes deeper and deeper. Next, the colloquy. So ways of involving other in the learning process. So Met says that in the student, as a student, I may be involved in cooperative learning, think, pair, and share. He also later on mentions also that you can talk to my teacher, my trainer or mentor. So conversation, just the way the conversation we do in prayer in Jesus with Mary and others. And the review at the end of prayer. So that is equal to, that says it is metacognition. Metacognition is a very important aspect of educational research today. That is the thinking about the learning process. How did we really learn? What happened? Going back. So which we hardly do that in our classes. What did I learn? How did I learn it? Maybe sometimes we summarize the class, maybe we ask some students, but this is a very important process that we need to use in our teaching, metacognition. How did I feel during the learning process? That means we need to help our student to do that, right? To do a metacognition regularly at the end of their learning. And in what way I want to make it differently, in what way I can learn things different. So these are the processes. Just please be aware. If you try to understand it, we'll come back to that again in a different form. But then when you practice it, there is an exercise, as I mentioned, this is given in the end, at the end, that is a homework for you. As you give to your students homework, there is a homework for you. So that is, I believe you will do it. Even I'm not coming to check on you or give marks for anything, but I believe you will do it. And I may not be possible today, not tomorrow, but please do it. So now I have connects the educational theory with the Ignatian connection. So first, actually there are many more things which I am not able to explain now given this time. And that certainly every aspect of this needs much more time or more discussion, as I said, and practice. So brain-based education. So according to the education theory, please be also aware, this book, which I also have, was written in 1995. Okay, and over the years, there are a lot of things have changed in educational research, education psychology, and modern technology aspects of educational aspects. Many things have changed. So these are still valid. Some of the stuff, some may not be a little bit, they may be relevant, but maybe a little bit outdated. So those things are there. So which some of the things I have not touched upon, but they may be a little bit outdated. And there are a few more which are still relevant, but I don't have time to explain. So here, brain-based education, each brain is unique. According to research says that each brain is unique. That means each child is unique. All right. Learning engages the entire physiology. All right. We have to involve all our aspects. That means our senses, or all five senses. That means whole mind and body also. That means the more we are involved, the more better we learn. And they mention also spatial memory, taxon memory, taxon memory. That's one way of looking at memory. But presently, think people mostly explain to different ways. One way is short-term memory and long-term memory. Then in connection with that brain-based here, use of the whole brain during the making of the spiritual exercises. All right. When we do that Ignatian method of prayer, we are involved. All person is involved, and it is directed to each person. Ignatian retreat, though there may be points in the beginning as we do retreat by a retreat director, but we meet the director every day to share our experiences, and accordingly, the retreat director guides the person, the retreatant, okay, what way the person should go. All right. So that means we take person individual, right, and whole person involvement, use of the imagination in prayer, and particularly in the colloquy, use of memory and understanding in meditation. That means all these are mental faculties we use in the prayer, but also are very much relevant in education research because it uses our whole brain. The next, multiple intelligences, which theory brought out by Howard Gardner, who is a great one of the famous educator in the USA. So, when this book was written, there were 7 multiple intelligences. All right, now he has proposed 2 more. Together there are 7. Together there are 9 multiple intelligences. So linguistic and logical, mathematical, right? That is equal to points for prayer in the spiritual exercises, grace sought, the understanding of meditation. So these are two multiple intelligences. Spatial and body kinesthetic. Nowadays we have our Olympics people participating. I believe they are very strong body kinesthetic intelligence, and then spatial intelligence for those who are good in architect, painting, drawing, and all. Composition of place, that is equal to composition of place, contemplation, application of the senses, and the colloquy. Intrapersonal, that means within a person, I'm able to reflect myself, my state of mind, state of my heart, state of my soul. It's a very reflective person. So then it's intrapersonal intelligence. The will for Ignatius, the place where the changes of the spiritual exercises become rooted. Then interpersonal, how the effects of the spiritual exercises are carried out. A love in deeds, not word. That means how in relationship with one another. That means we are not for ourselves, but we are for others. That means that it's certainly an intelligence, because not everybody can really communicate freely, become friends with one another. Some people can be introvert, some are extrovert. So but doesn't mean that we cannot develop the other intelligences. And there are 2 more, naturalistic and existential intelligence. Then dimensions of learning, that is brought out by Robert J. Marzano, and with the close relationship with Ignatian pedagogy and dimension he speaks about. The first level is positive attitudes and perception about learning. All right, and that is equal to context. That means the student and we need to have a positive attitude and perception. That means really we need to desire to learn, that I want to learn, and what context I am in. All this matters. Then secondly, acquiring and integrating knowledge. Marzano and his colleagues, they said that second stage is how we acquire and integrate the knowledge through various ways, through class teaching, by the external outside experience, educational tool could be. So, and that is equal to experience, reflection, and action, which takes place again and again, the spiral way. When it happens again and again, it takes us deeper and deeper. Same like it helps us to expanding and refining knowledge, using knowledge meaningfully, and it helps us to lead productive habits of mind. That means helps us to develop a mindset. We call it like growth mindset or positive mindset. That is one lady called Carol Dweck, who has promoted the positive mindset. Okay, she says that our mindset is so important. We have and that affects everything: how we relate with one another, how we teach, how we relate with our students, how productive we become, how successful we become, even in challenges and difficulties. So that helps us to develop positive, productive habits of mind. And that's where spiritual exercises help us to become truly a person for others. Then next, little bit more on the brain-based education and Ignatian method of prayer. Already, here I will not directly compare, but we have already seen the previous slides, and try to understand, if you can, try to compare with that. What I will do is I will send this PPTs in the PDF form to your email addresses within 1 hour today itself, so that you can go through it again and try to deepen your understanding on what we did just now. So there is two person called, actually they're known as Kane, let me just say, Geoffrey and Renato Kane. There are two persons, they are scientists, educational research scientists. They brought out aspect of brain-based learning. There are 12 principles of brain-based learning. So according to them, and even today, it's certainly we have valid their point, the brain is a parallel processor. I mean, even as if you are listening to me, I know it's not easy to continuously listen to me for a long time, right? And our brain naturally wanders here and there, and our attention goes. So there are different processes simultaneously taking place in our brain. One of them maybe takes precedence over the others, and learning engages the entire physiology. So this is not a best form of learning here, because even though technology is a great help, given this situation, I know this is the best thing that can happen, that we are able to connect around now 360 people are connected with this technology. But this may not be a best form of learning, because we are not fully involved in our learning. Then there is a search for meaning is innate. That means we all want to find certain meaning in our life. And the meaning occurs to patterning. That means whatever we learn, that is connected. That is the more we try to connect with that, that gives us meaning and purpose, and so-called patterning. And emotions are critical to patterning. See, emotions are usually we are so much involved with the memory-based or rote memory-based learning that we forget emotion. Ignatius gives a lot of importance to emotions, feelings, desires, because they are so important part of our life. I mean, if you take in our mind, body, spirit, mind, heart, and soul, our hands, everything together as a holistically, as a whole person, then emotions are important too. And today we remember, in a research said, emotional memories are very strong memories. If I told you to remember an exercise, do an exercise. So since it is connected with some emotion, you are able to quickly go back to that experience. And research says that the memory based on just facts and evidences may not be a strong memories. But if you connect that facts and evidences with emotions and with the whole real life situation, that then become very strong memories for our lives. And if we can do that in our teaching and learning, our students are going to gain a lot. And every brain simultaneously perceives and creates parts and whole. That is a process brain works in a very, very different ways and tries to perceive the reality outside. Then learning involves both focused attention and peripheral perception. That means it happens in many different ways. We need to pay attention, but also it happens when we live in a culture situation. Learning also involves both conscious and unconscious processes. Like as it happening now, you pay attention to that, but it can also happen in unconscious way as when you are living in a family, in a community, in a school. Many things can influence. There are different types of memory. As I said, I'll be speaking a little more later on memory. Then the brain understands and remembers best, as I mentioned, when it's connected with a real life situation. Learning is enhanced by challenge. That means the more you push our students, if you help them to go further, positive challenges with positive stress, they will do better. But if you frighten them through threats, then their growth will be stunted. They will not learn. We will not learn through fear. So that's why we need to avoid fear, enforcing fear in our student. That doesn't mean that we should not have discipline. Discipline is different than enforcing fear. There's a positive discipline which helps students to become disciplined person. Then each brain is unique, and we are all unique person. So there are two more things with regard to memory and brain. See, our brains are made of neurons, right? And there is a one famous sentence, it comes in neurology, is that neurons that fire together, wire together. Neurons that fire together, wire together, especially in brain education. What does it mean? That means when we are involved in not multiple tasks, okay, not multiple tasks, but when our whole body, mind, body, our hands, our heart is involved in learning, that means we are totally present to an experience. That means all our senses are involved, our eyes, hearing, our touch, smell, and all whole body is involved. Then what happens? All brain is in fire. That means brain is activated. And when brain is activated, means all neurons, different parts of our brain are activated, and which they fire at the same time, creating a very stronger learning experience and stronger memories. And secondly, neuroplasticity. I don't know if some of you might have heard about it. What is neuroplasticity? That our brains are very, they have great ability to adapt to the situation, all right? They can change depending on what situation, environment we live in. So if we live in a very positive experiences, that means our brain also will adjust to that. If you live in a negative experience atmosphere, our brains also will be modified according to that. And in case, if you want to learn something new for our students or for ourselves, what we need to do is that we need to consistently practice the same thing again and again, especially at least for a month. According to positive psychology, they say at least for 21 days. And if you do that for 21 days, what happens that our brains become more adjusted to the new situation, and it becomes very easy for us to learn the new things or develop an hobby or develop an habit. So you try to do it and you will see that if you do the same thing consistently every day, intentionally, initially it may be difficult. For example, taking exercise, doing exercise every day, or getting up at the same time. So if all those things matters, if you do it regularly, our brain, our personal whole body gets adjusted. So memory, short-term memory and long-term memory. Long-term memory is divided into explicit conscious memory, implicit unconscious memory, and the other one is episodic, semantic. What is episodic? Is events that happen to you. Semantic is general knowledge of the world. And what is priming? Priming means that sometimes there are words, when you think about one, other word will come to you very immediately. For example, black, white, good, bad. All right. So those things like that, priming. And if you think about like for color, like any fruit that has yellow color, immediately our mind we remember banana. So similarly, that's way. Procedural is like our body. It's like our body's memory. So because the way we live in, so it's already our mind body integration is there. So it remembers without unconsciously, we do few things. Next, the multiple intelligences. I won't go in detail, as I mentioned before. There are 9 multiple intelligences as proposed by Howard Gardner. That is that 2 ones, naturalist and existential intelligences were added later. Naturalist means there are people who are very good with the nature. They can understand how plants grow, animals grow very easily, and they feel totally part of the nature very easy. So that's called naturalist intelligence. Musical, they are excellent in music. There are some logical, mathematical. There are some people who are excellent in mathematical things, logical learning. There are people existential learn. That means there are, it's called philosophers who ask question, purpose, meaning in life. It's very natural for them. For others, it may not come natural unless you really work on it. Interpersonal, as a relationship with one another. Bodily kinesthetic, as I say, Olympics. There are people who are excellent in sports. They are surely strong bodily kinesthetic people. Linguistic, there are people excellent with languages, learning language. So they are linguistic intelligent. Intrapersonal, all right. Intrapersonal means the people who can think about themselves. How do they feel? Spatial, visualizing the world. That means as an architect, there are, or painter, people have that intelligence. So here, these intelligence, some are good, maybe good in one, may not be good in other, but we can grow in others. But it's good to know what intelligence I'm good at. And Ignatius, our Ignatian methodology of prayer learning helps to bring in different aspects of intelligences. And here again, back to this Marzano and his colleagues who spoke, mentioned about 5 different types of dimensions of learning. I mean, dimensions of learning, that is attitudes and perception begins with, then acquiring and integrating knowledge, extending and refining knowledge through repetition of exercises and learning, using knowledge meaningfully. How do we use it for action? All right. Then habits of mind, productive habits of mind. How we help our mind to be critical, creative. I know it's been long and it might take a little more time for you to understand, but try to understand as much you can and come back to that later. And this is an exercise for you. Please do it later. I'll just briefly go through it again. I mean, not again. I'll try to explain to you what it is about. So if you come to this, let's say reflection purpose is remote preparation. That means points the night before. How do you prepare yourself for this exercise? Right. So Ralph Metz asked the participant, you or me, choose 3 different days or different stages of your career of teaching and learning. And maybe it could be a difficult stage or could be a average stage of teaching and learning or average time of experience of teaching and learning, or an excellent day or memorable day of teaching and learning. So it's up to you. Take 3 of them, but you can choose any one of them. And then what do? Preparatory activities for reflection. That means preparatory prayer. You remember a time when you learned something easily, quickly and well. Spend some time finding such an occasion. When you have found such an occasion, take some time to enjoy. So you put yourself into that mode of meditation. And then preparatory activities, composition of plays. So you try to recall some of your experience of teaching and learning so that you'll be able to get into that not only mode of prayer, but also you are able to present yourself into that exercise. Next, preparatory grace sought during the prayer. What is that you seek from this exercise? All right. What is that you want? And then reflection itself, briefly, this is what. That what is there you bring that one of your maybe one of your experiences, such as maybe a difficult one, or maybe the average day of teaching and learning, or maybe excellent day of teaching and learning, and relive that exercise given all the instruction that is given here. So just read that one and try to follow that when you get time. Today I may be difficult, maybe tomorrow, and see how that helps you. All right. And then concluding activities. At the end, you just have a conversation with a master teacher or instructor, what you underwent in that experience. Speak about that experience. Then reflection, post-prayer, you, as I say, review or metacognition. So what was helpful? What happened to you during this prayer, your exercise? Not like exactly a prayer exercise, but meditation exercise. What happened to you? How it helped you become, what changed you or touched you? All right. So see, and what way you can do it better. So this is same like this one from the perspective of who is doing now. Now it is from the perspective of your teaching and Ignatian reflection on teaching points. These all follow up. These are connected for your homework. Please come back to that later. And when you get time and see how they are connected with your experience of life. Points the night before, choice of the topic for reflection, preparatory prayer, learning state. First prelude, composition of plays. Second, step 2, classes taught and attended. Second prelude, grace sword. What do I want to learn? Points for prayer, especially 3 points. You take 3 stages or 3 days of teaching. You use different methods: meditation, contemplation, application, or you can take different types of experiences. Whatever the experience that you had. Colloquy, conversation with a master teacher. Closing prayer. This is not used. Review of prayer session. And then this is come to your teaching. And you are teaching for your class. How do you prepare yourself? Points before the night before. How do you prepare yourself for a lesson, right? So that they get a good teaching experience. Preparatory prayer. How do you establish a positive learning state in the class? How do you help them, bring them into that mode of learning, teaching and learning? It's not that just to begin the class, but we need to prepare them for that. So first, composition of place, that all environment matter, classroom environment matters for learning. Then grace sword, what is the objectives? Points for prayer, how do I provide some type of outline for them before the class? And then actual learning class that you teach them, various methods on pedagogies. Colloquy, so you help them to discuss among themselves or help them talk to them about their learning experience. Closing prayer here, Father admits it. How does the class end and what is used to mark the conclusion or evaluation of it? And the review is going back, metacognition. So I know this is a lot of things we are covered, but may not everything will not be able to, you will able to understand me now. But please come back to that again. Our brain needs time for processing. So, and also this is not the best mode of learning, as I would say, because it's I'm keep on talking and you are listening. There is no much activities other than we had what I had in the middle. So what I did was we went from beginning prayer, objectives, recap of this, objectives and outcome, Ignatian year. I mentioned about Ignatian year 2021. I discussed deeply on significant documents, a brief history of Jesuit education. We did an exercise of your memorable teaching experience. Ignatian method of prayer, teaching and learning versus modern educational research. And then I gave an exercise for homework for you to do that. So now this is almost, I finished everything. Just I'll end with, before a few things, I'd like to examine. Some of our schools are doing in a different ways, but I think it's a very powerful prayer technique, which is very relevant and important for us as educators. So it's a kind of metacognition process. I will lead you into it, and please try to do it as the best as we can. So try to put yourself again in the presence of God, the best way. Possibly close your eyes. And if possible, if your mind still distracted, try to focus on your breathing, the breath of life that God has given. Just focus on your breath, natural breath if possible. Our breath connects us from outer world to inner world, and inner world to the outer world. We thank God for this gift of breath, the sign of our life living. And as we slowly feel the presence of God, let us thank God for this day, especially for this webinar. And review this day and this webinar the best way you can. What happened to you as you went through this exercise? What was God doing to you? And what is that touched you most? Some exercise maybe, or some new learning or insight, some experience you had. Whatever is that, just bring it to your mind, and thank God for that experience. Even though it may not be a pleasant experience that you had today, you can bring that too in your prayer. We can learn from both, from our good experiences as well as bad experiences. From our mistakes too, we learn. And as we recall any one or two moments that touched us, we talk about that experience with God or yourself within yourself, and see what is that happening to you. What do you feel? How you feel about that experience? Then we end with thanking God for all the blessing that we have received and for the wonderful experience that we had, and with the hope that we will do better in the coming days and the day to come to become better person. As Jesuits and all of us, we celebrate this Ignatian year, the year of conversion of Saint Ignatius. May Saint Ignatius help us to grow to become better educator, Ignatian Jesuit educators, so that we may be able to touch the lives of our students, so that they become better human beings, better persons. With grateful hearts, we move forward. So what we review, just brief review, I will not have almost this time, so we'll not be doing now here. But what I want you to do is just reflect over that after this. What was helpful in this webinar? What was not helpful? And what needs to be improved? And if you have any suggestion, feedback, comments, or questions, something that you want to learn, please write to me, my email address, and I'll get back to you. And again, I invite you to join the Educate Magis. It's one of the outcome. I believe you will do that. It doesn't take just 2-3 minutes. Just register is your name, and it's you will find a lot of things there. And once again, a big thanks to Father Tony P, our director of ERC and our coordinator for education, PCE. It is he who invited me to do this one, this webinar. I mean, do something for our school. So I came up with this program. So I thank him. And Father Joshi Kunel providing from Exam University for providing this digital platform, and for the assistance, technical assistance to Father Tony John. He's also doing PhD at Exam University Bhubaneswar, and Brother Jubin Nath for helping me with the other creating poster and registration. So then I wish you all a very happy feast of Saint Ignatius. We'll be preparing for that. You're also preparing in different ways. We'll be celebrating on 31st, maybe in the schools we'll celebrate on 30th. So thank you all, and I wish you a wonderful evening, blessed evening. So thank you so much.